The corridor outside Medical Bay 7 had never been so silent, nor so heavily guarded. 4 Kraveth soldiers stood at attention, their scaled bodies rigid, plasma rifles held across their chests, their eyes all 3 sets fixed on the sealed door with an intensity that made passing crew members quicken their pace. Inside, Dr. Sana Marlowe worked with steady hands. The alpha cub whimpered on the surgical table, its silver fur matted with blood and burn residue. It was small, barely the size of a human 10-year-old, but Sana knew what it would become. In 5 cycles, this fragile creature would stand 3 meters tall, capable of tearing through starship hulls with its bare claws. The alphas were the apex predators of the Andromeda Reach, a species so feared that entire trade routes had been abandoned to avoid their hunting grounds. And somehow, this one had ended up in a cargo net, caught in the crossfire of a skirmish near the Helix Nebula. "Easy, little one," Sana murmured, her voice low and soothing. The universal translator on her collar couldn't process alpha vocalizations. But tone was universal. She'd learned that treating frightened animals on Earth, long before she'd ever imagined working on a coalition medical frigate. The cub's 6 eyes, milky with pain and fear, tracked her movements. Its breathing was rapid, shallow. 3 of its 4 arms were broken. The wounds were deep, some cauterized by weapons fire, others torn by shrapnel. It should have been dead, but it wasn't. And Sana wouldn't let it die now. She'd been synthesizing bone knitters when Commander Jorik Thane had entered, his expression carved from stone. The Kraveth officer was a towering figure, his emerald scales catching the harsh medical lights. He'd said nothing at first, simply watched as she'd sedated the cub and began her work. Then, quietly, "You understand what you're treating, Doctor?" "A patient," Sana had replied without looking up. "A child." Thane's throat sacs had inflated a sign of distress among his kind. "The Alpha Conclave will come for it. When they discover we have one of their young, then they'll find it alive and healing." Sana had met his gaze then, unflinching. "I took an oath, Commander. It doesn't have species exemptions." That had been 6 hours ago. Thane had left, but within the hour, the guards had appeared. Not to keep the cub in, Sana realized. To keep everyone else out. Now, as she carefully aligned the cub's fractured forelimb and activated the bone knitter, she heard the distinctive hiss of the door behind her. She didn't turn. "Vital signs are stabilizing," she said. "Another 2 hours, and the worst will be over. The Conclave has made contact." Thane's voice was gravelly, tired. "They're sending a warship. They'll be here in 14 hours. Sina's hands never stopped moving. "Good. Then this little one can go home, Dr. Marlowe." Thane stepped closer, and she could smell the copper tang of his stress pheromones. "They will want to know how their cub was injured. They will want justice. Then we'll tell them the truth." Sana finally looked up, her brown eyes hard. "We found their child in a war zone, wounded and alone. And we did what any civilized species should do. We helped." Civilized. Thane's mandibles clicked a bitter laugh. "The Alphas don't recognize that concept. To them, there are only predators and prey. They have destroyed colonies for less than this. Maybe." Sana returned to her work, injecting cellular regenerators into the cub's damaged tissue. Or maybe they've never had someone return their child before. The cub stirred, making a sound like distant thunder. Its eyes clearer, now focused on Sina's face. For a moment, the fear in them receded. One small hand, the only unbroken one, reached out tentatively. Sana took it gently, feeling the tiny claws retract at her touch. "You're safe now," she whispered. Thane watched this exchange in silence. Then, with a deep rumble from his chest, he turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "The guards outside aren't just for protection, Doctor. They're witnesses. When the Alphas arrive, they'll testify to what happened here. How a human physician worked through the night to save one of their young, expecting nothing in return." "I don't need witnesses," Sana said softly. "I just need this child to survive." But Thane continued as if she hadn't spoken. "In my culture, we have a saying. The pack remembers those who protect the vulnerable. I suspect the alphas have something similar. He glanced back at her, his 3 sets of eyes thoughtful. What you're doing here, Dr. Marlowe, it's either the bravest thing I've ever witnessed, or the most foolish. Why can't it be both? Sina smiled faintly, never taking her eyes off her patient. When Thane left, the door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. Sina continued her work, alone except for the small, broken creature that had been entrusted to her care. Outside, the guards stood their vigil, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, a warship full of humanity's most feared enemies accelerated toward them. But in Medical Bay 7, none of that mattered. Here, there was only a doctor and her patient. Here, there was only the ancient, universal act of healing. The cub's breathing steadied, its eyes drifted closed, and Sina Marlowe, human physician, worked on through the night because some things transcended species, transcended fear, transcended even survival itself. Some things, like compassion, were simply what made one human.